What's up, everyone? I hope you're doing well. This is actually the second part of the same morning. I normally don't do this, but I just had another cup of coffee, and so we're back. Reloaded. New ideas, new thoughts. It's amazing what this stuff does for you. I drink too much of it. That's why I get a little cup. I like this little cup because I can drink lots of cups then. It makes me feel like I'm drinking lots of coffee. It's a good batch today. My cornfield here. Not my cornfield, but my cornfield view. Let's just jump right in. Sorry, a little wound up from the caffeine kicking in. I want to talk about why people love Olympic weightlifting. And I think the reason is really simple. Now, Olympic weightlifting, I'd argue to the end of time, has nothing innately special with it. It's not like a trap bar high pull, or if its variations are far less inferior or far more inferior or worse than Olympic weightlifting, right? It's not like jumping with kettlebells is less beneficial than Olympic weightlifting. But here's why, in my opinion, people like Olympic weightlifting. My long hair is in the way. I apologize. Fix my long locks. I think people love Olympic weightlifting because it's objective to an extent. You either complete the lift or you don't. But B is that it's a power movement that is objective. So I know those are kind of the same thing, but it's important to understand because you could have a power movement that's objective, like a jump with a trap bar and measure the jump height, and you know how high someone's jumping. But there isn't really a success factor. It's not completion or not completion. So I think what happens, why people love Olympic weightlifting and why it's gotten so much, well, it always has, and there's reason to it, obviously, for triple extension and all that fun stuff. But I think from a utility standpoint, people like it because it's a way to have a yes or no completion to a very nebulous concept of that is power. So let's think about this. If we're testing max strength, we're going to use a movement, maybe like a back squat. And you either lift more weight or you don't. It has a starting point, it has an ending point. It's completed, yes or no. It's, black and white. It's right there, easy to decide whether or not it was successful. When it comes to power movements, let's say you have a back squat. Well, I want to move that back squat as fast as I can. How do you know how fast it actually was? You don't really know, right? But if I do something like unless you measure it, but let's say if I do something like a hang clean or a power clean, well, I know if I caught the movement or not. And I know the weight isn't as much as a back squat. And I know because I have to create displacement from my hip, my blast pull to my catch position, it has to have some sort of distance being covered, making that movement a power dominant movement. So it's one of the only movements that's a power dominant movement that we can objectively say it was completed or not completed. So when I lift more weight in a hang clean, I know that I am lifting more weight in theory over the same distance, and if the same distance is being covered with more weight, it's at a higher velocity, so it's more power. And so that's why people love it so much, in my opinion. That's totally fine, but it's important to recognize that a lot of the loving of it, I think, comes from the psychological side of, and this is my opinion, that we can objectively say whether or not that movement was completed. And it helps us understand if someone's actually getting better. How do I progress a trap bar jump? How high are they supposed to jump before I add more weight? Well, a hang clean's pretty easy to progress. You either catch it or you don't catch it. And when you catch it with more weight, you're progressing. But with a trap bar jump, there's too much variability. There's no objective stop and start point. So I think a lot of the love for Olympic lifts is the fact that there is a completion to it. It's this weird hybrid of power being emphasized because you're displacing a weight over a given distance, which requires a certain type of velocity to move it over that distance. And if I know I have more mass and the same velocity is covering, let's just break the physics down really quick for those of you that are lost. If I'm covering like 1 foot and I'm throwing it, which is essentially what a pull is, right? We're having a ballistic displacement like your propulsion. It has to have the same exit velocity or takeoff velocity or velocity after that pull in order to cover the same amount of distance. So if it's a foot between my hip and my chest, and that's how I catch a bar, I have to have the same last pull velocity in theory for it to displace 1 foot for me to catch it. So I know that my velocity in order to catch the weight has to be whatever velocity it is off that hip. So if I'm able to catch a higher weight, more weight, right, during a hang clean, I'm displacing still a foot every time. Well, I know I'm displacing more weight at the same velocity. More weight at the same velocity means more power, because in theory, if I went back to a lighter weight in my previous 1 rep max, well, I'd be displacing at an even higher velocity. So it's just an easy way to kind of assess power output, which is kind of an easy, it's cool, it's a good tool. That's why it's helpful. It's also why it's helpful to understand physics, and why you can use physics to understand maybe some of the psychological sides as to why we love this movement so much, because physics gives us a controlled environment to understand that, look, when you catch a hang clean with more weight, you're producing more power probably. And from a psychological side, that's a good thing for us as coaches, because we can objectively say, look, they're producing more power without having to measure. I don't need any equipment. I can just use the physics basically. So that's why I think it gets so much love, is because it does have some level of objectiveness beyond that of which other movements allow. There is a completion. There's a starting point. Obviously, people like the whole triple extension stuff, and you can argue about whether or not, if it's not done right, blah, blah, blah. That's not for this discussion. The point is, why do people like it so much? Because I think it's an easy tool to objectively say whether or not someone is producing more power in a way that you wouldn't be able to assess it with a back squat, a deadlift, a bench press, or anything like that. Because there is a completion and a given displacement you have to create in order to catch the bar, it is a movement dominated by a constrained velocity, that is the velocity which you pull with, which is relatively high because you have to put displacement a decent amount. So I'm rambling on. I hope you guys enjoy it. I appreciate listening. If you guys like these talks, let me know. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I hope you drink some coffee with me next time, and you guys have a good morning and enjoy your day, whatever. Like, subscribe, share, whatever. I don't know what you do with these things, but a bonus one, episode 7. It's not even 7 episodes in 6 days. The info is abundant here. Take care, y'all.